happening?
They're starting to come through.
Hello, Peter. Looks like we got competition.
There are others out there. We need to send them back.
I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo is crap.
Spider-Man, No Way Home.
You heard it up top. Welcome back to Normies Like Us. Spider-Man? Spider-Man? Radioactive podcast man? Watch out! Because we're talking Spider-Man here on Normies Like Us. Spider-Man 3, No Way Home. With your hosts, the Green Colin.
Spider Mike.
Joe Parker. Bad one.
Okay.
You Joe Parker?
Spider Jacob over here.
Oh, you're Spider-Man
Doing
too?
spider things. Yep.
That's crazy.
Right, point at each other.
We might be from a different universe. I don't know.
Could be. Right off the bat, No Way Home. Obviously, I mentioned on the last episode that we would talk the animated Lord of the Rings for all the listeners were deceived, for another movie was released. And we really, really, really needed to talk about it because I don't want to bury the lead too much, but it's incredible. And it's a huge moment in pop culture. So we're going to talk this newest Marvel release, Spider-Man.
Look, Normies, like everybody else on the planet, we want to talk it too. Let's say it now, because from whatever happens beyond this point, you're being warned, Normies. Spoilers.
Well,
this is going to be a spoilers episode.
Yes.
Let's give a brief, thing before spoiler. We all liked it, right? So we would recommend seeing it, and then now we can.
And if
Shut
you didn't
this
see
off.
it, go do it and come
Go
back.
watch it.
Hey,
Come
yeah.
back.
Don't click on a podcast if you haven't seen the thing either. Come
Yeah.
on. Obviously, we're going to talk spoilers here.
Well, this more than most things has spoilers that could potentially ruin your experience.
And
if
I
you
was
knew
able
about
to
it.
avoid them.
You can't even get into talking about it at all without the spoiler warning. Because
Right.
Being
5
looked at.
minutes in, and
It
everything
felt
is
important to
incredibly
say up
spoiled.
top.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
How did we see this? Really quickly, before we dive into the episode, I saw it in a theater. I went by myself. It was pretty crowded, the local, Koreatown theater here. So I got my Korean subs as I like with my Marvel movies, and I had a great time. And that's where I'll leave it. How about you guys?
Best, Mike. I was going to say, literally, this feels like a movie where do we want to spend 30 minutes just chronicling our entire adventure, just watching it? I feel like because it was such an impact of a movie that I will remember every detail of this night for the rest of my life. So I know the whole story.
Yeah. Did you guys see it all together?
We did, yeah.
We did.
This is my first time back to the movies, full stop. So first movie in 22 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, not for me. I've been to the theater a few times.
This was from Birds of Prey to Spider-Man No Way Home.
Wow.
You can't even say first movie post-COVID. COVID's still ravaging America. But Joe, you waited a long time. You
First
did the
movie
responsible
during COVID.
thing.
Got boosted.
Worth
right?
it, would you say?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Like this, like you said, Colin. One of those. It's so hard to talk about this because the smile that comes across your face, even just thinking about this movie, is so big. But yeah, absolutely worth it. One of my favorite theater experiences of all time. I mean, this one's going to be hard to beat again.
Yeah, we saw it in a packed theater opening night, right? Not a huge fan of the theater we saw it in. It's not my usual theater, it's not my Cinemark North Hollywood with its reclining seats, but I'll give it a pass this time, but I probably won't be going back to that theater in the future. But the crowd was great, lots of cheering and clapping and all that, which I mostly would not like in a movie theater, but on an opening night comic book movie, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about this then? Let's get right into it. Let's talk Spider-Man No Way Home, aka Spider-Man 3, 2, aka Spider-Man 8. Depending how you look at all these films together, we're going to get right into it. Spider-Man No Way Home right after this.
It's so hard, man. It's so formulating words after seeing it is just like
those emotions can now come forth. Let the levees open. All right, Colin, whenever you're ready.
As we're back, and like Joe said, we have these Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe-sized smiles on our faces as we are watching and talking about this movie. Now, again, if we're just doing reactions here, even going into it, I just want to say, The first thing I said when we walked out of this theater to Joe and Jacob and Cassie, Joe's partner with us as well, was, do you guys feel like the government commissioned that movie as a reward for us surviving COVID? Does it feel like a fever dream wish fulfillment?
It does. I mean, it still feels like a dream to me that this movie even exists, because I never thought I would see what I saw in that movie. But
it's like a shared hallucination we're all having right
Yes.
now, where it's like, hey, just hang in there a little longer, because the MCU started in 2001 apparently. Like,
Yeah,
insane.
right.
You were a little before us, Mike. You saw it like I think an hour ahead of.
Yeah.
And just to come out and to see your text, the first thing, yo, all caps, exclamation marks, shooting yo's back. It was the opening scene of this movie where two excited teenagers are screaming, dude! I mean, that is what you feel.
That's all I could send is like, yo, like, yeah, you get out of it.
Yeah.
You just feel so good. I mean, it was the experience itself. Yeah, I haven't had that in a theater in a long time. I think I felt better leaving the theater for Spider-Man than I have for anything besides Mad Max Fury Road in the last 10 years.
Wow.
Even Endgame.
Wow.
I truly don't know. Yeah, like Endgame, there's any other
I didn't feel
franchise,
this
there's like things you still think. You know what I mean? Like, I saw the Avengers in 2012 at the El Cap at midnight. Huge, crazy experience.
Wow.
That was probably the most comparable thing, but even that didn't have the same, like, I don't know, payoff that this did.
Yeah.
yeah, and you know, it's hard to judge it as a movie like in an unbiased kind of way, because you know, I'm not going to come at it in an unbiased way, because it's just, you know, the fan service is just too much, and I can't not like it. I don't think it's like a perfect movie or anything, but it's almost not even a movie, more of an experience. Just like Endgame and Infinity War, kind of, where like it's hard to judge them as movies because it's just like, you know, it's just such an experience.
You bought the ticket.
I have a bold take. I think it's the best comic book movie ever made.
Oh my god!
I don't even think it's the best
Okay.
Spider-Man movie ever made.
Yeah,
but
No.
Well,
Let me
start there.
Let me
'cause I
defend
want to
it
hear
real quick.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, it is not the best movie about a comic book character. It is the
Right.
best comic book movie ever made.
Okay,
This
I see
movie
what you mean.
plays like a 6-issue run of a Spider-Man story.
Yeah.
The beats are not of a typical like 3-act structure of a movie. They're typical of the 3-act structure in a graphic novel or a combined first volume of a comic. Like, it is insane that we have in issue 2, he goes to Doctor Strange, and then of course you know you're going to get a Doctor Strange fight, but he's not going to stick around the entire time. He'll come back in issue 6 to kind of wrap up the story, but you're done with that crossover. Now we're moving into issue 3, where he's going to have a fight on the bridge with Doc Ock, and then a teaser for Green Goblin. Like, it is laid out like a comic book.
I think you can make a
No
case
other
for
movie has done that.
You know, I think you can make a case for Civil War, Infinity War, in Endgame. But yeah, I think you're right. So you think it's the best MCU Spider-Man movie?
Yeah, best. Well, just beyond that, best
Oh, yeah.
MCU movie. Joe, is that what you're trying to say too? Your favorite now?
I don't want to like say that, but like I stand by that it is the best comic book movie ever made. Like, if you're looking at it purely like that,
Right.
I don't think anything else has succeeded the way it succeeds.
And Joe, I've heard some criticisms. People talk about kind of the pacing and maybe, the beginning isn't as good as the second half. But looking at it through that lens, I loved all of it. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've heard that, here and there. And it's like looking at it in the comic book breakdown lens, where it's kind of these 2-issue sets, where Doctor Strange and then the villain hunt and then the final third act, big finale. That's kind of the way it's set up. I like it. And I'll go out and say this is my favorite MCU movie of all time, period.
Wow, Mike.
Again,
That's
not a comic
awesome.
book reader, but when I did, it was Spider-Man. And this just brought so much joy to my life as a Spider-Man fan. That's all.
Well, here's how I kind of feel about it. It's like,
Wow.
again, I think it's hard to judge as a movie, because I don't think it's the best movie that MCU has made, but it's the best, like you said, Joe, it's the best like interpretation of a comic book as a movie. I agree with that. I think the best Spider-Man movie that's yet been made is Into the Spiderverse. So I can't say it's the best Spider-Man movie, but it's close, I think. I mean, it's up there.
it's hard to judge based on, again, a lot of fan service. It's almost like, yeah, just kind of this dream come true thing more than it is a film in certain ways. So it is hard to look at. Yeah, I agree.
And I think Into the Spider-Verse did do a lot of the things that this movie does before it, so you have to give that movie credit as well. And we all like that movie as well.
Can I jump in on this part and just talk to Joe directly real quick? Because Mike just said, you're not a comic book reader. Jacob, you're saying Into the Spider-Verse is the best. Now, this concept, and we're going to talk about it a lot today, listeners, the Spider-Verse, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. Now, that's written by Dan Slott, great Spider-Man writer. He gets the first time credited in a movie, and for this film, congratulations to him, sir. Now, Joe, quick story. I swear to God, I'll go fast on this. I was watching something dumb the other day, and it had a supernatural element in it. I can't even remember what it was, where somebody ends up revealed to be, I'm Basat the Panther God in like this bad B horror movie I'm watching. I'm like, oh my God, Basat the Panther God. Okay, interesting. I have this internal monologue where I go, oh, that's the name of the god of the Black Panther in Black Panther's universe. That's how I know that. Interesting. Oh, Black Panther is the avatar of the Panther. That's what he's known as in the comic universe. Oh, Dan Slott came up with the idea that Spider-Man's the avatar of the spider. Oh, Joe, we learned that in the comic book series called Spiderverse. Oh, it's like this bad writing that we had to like convince ourselves that the interplanetary dimensional energy vampire Mordlin was like a good addition to the Spider-Man universe. And Joe, both those things that Mike and Jacob just said, they didn't have to put up with any of that. They can just recognize and see that the best concept of a Spider-Verse that, again, Dan Slott came up with, that is stolen for both those ideas, this film and Into the Spider-Verse. The cool thing is Spider-Men meeting each other, Joe. We don't need all the other dumb bullshit. But why does that work?
It even goes further back than that. In 1996, when the animated series did it as a one-off episode for the ending, that was kind of the first actual inception of a Spider-Verse. And then Dan Slott did his entire thing, including having some of those characters in and now canonized. Like, what I love the most about the concept of the Spider-Verse is absolutely spider people meeting each other and like having a conversation over their shared misery. Like, there are scenes in this movie that are directly lifted from Into the Spider-Verse. It's a lot of the same themes in no particular order. Like, my holy trilogy of Spider-Man movies is Spider-Verse, No Way Home, and Spider-Man 2. And those I like.
Yeah,
to get those knocked off the pedestal at this point, I think is like
here's
going to be impossible.
It's a big ask, yeah.
Here's what I think. So it's not the best Spider-Man movie, but it's the best. It's the movie that was made to please the most amount of people at once. So like, if you're a fan of the Sam Raimi movies, you're going to like this movie. If you're a fan of the Andrew Garfield movies, you're really going to like this movie. And if you're a fan of the MCU Spider-Man, you're still going to like this movie. So all Spider-Man fans are going to come away from this movie happy.
But let's point that out real quick, too,
except for Venom
now,
fans.
Listeners,
fuck you.
Go back and listen. We did an episode. We've done many episodes on Spider-Man, but we did one specifically where we went through them all kind of in order and ranked them out by the periods that they exist, the characters that come into this world. Now, I re-listened to that episode. Not to have rose-colored glasses here, but there were a lot of things about those two universes we did not like, guys. So, that a lot of people are coming at it with nostalgia, and like you said, Jacob, that it is pleasing those fans who were those people. Beyond that, the corrections it's doing, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, and I'm sure that's a point you all want to make, but the fact that it's satisfying us two who didn't like Spider-Man 3, thinks Amazing Spider-Man 2 is one of the worst movies ever made. Your words, Jacob, from that episode.
Sure.
We love Andrew Garfield in this one.
Well, I think we always said that we liked, like, Andrew Garfield was a great Peter Parker and Spider-Man in bad movies, but here he's definitely been vindicated in a way that,
Spider-Man 2 reference. Nice.
Vindicated? There we go.
But, I mean, if you're a fan of his portrayal in those movies, like you're gonna love this movie because it totally vindicates his character.
So
I mean, like I said, I have my top 3 that are in no particular order, and then after that, I get very fucking specific about the order of what movies I think are the best and worst. And I think, I don't remember what I said on that episode, but I'm pretty sure my least favorite, everyone knows, is the last one. Is Far From Home.
Right,
Far From
right,
Home
yep.
is my least favorite Spider-Man movie.
That's crazy.
To go from that to this, which is like,
On the
oh
pedestal.
yeah, no, that's undeniably a classic now. It's like they found a way to fix all the things people who were like diehard fans hated about this version and make the other versions look great at the same time. Like that balancing act of not only delivering, but like over delivering is insane to me.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I was going to say, we're dancing around it, kind of talk about it. Let me just run through the rough beat like we already did comic book, and then we'll just get crazy because, it leaks and stuff like that. As everybody knows, we do get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back as their Spider-Man. The cat's out of the bag, but the rough setup is, they know who Peter Parker is after Mysterio outs him. He doesn't get into college as a result of that.
Having a bad time.
Yeah, he asks Doctor Strange to cast a spell to forget Spider-Man. He wants to make all these changes. Oh, but not Ned, not MJ. Spell goes awry. All of a sudden, other Spider-Man villains from the Sony films and Sam Raimi films are coming into the world. First, he's trying to just capture them. Then he wants to kind of reform them. And not only were villains pulled in this effort, other Spider-Men were too. And they must work together to cure all the villains. There you go.
Hooray!
No way home.
This is what I love about this is what this movie gets so right about Spider-Man in ways that maybe, Joe had problems with before. But the whole conflict of this movie comes because Peter Parker wants to save these villains, and because that's who Peter Parker is. Doctor Strange is like the true neutral character, right? Where he's like, what I believe is, leave them to their fate. Fate shouldn't be messed with. And we'll just reset everything. But Peter Parker can't do that because he's an internal optimist, right? He's got to try to save them. And so that's what kicks off this whole thing. Like, basically, there would be no conflict in this movie if you just had said, okay, well, we'll go on with what Doctor Strange wants to do. And that's so Peter Parker of him to do that, right?
Jacob, it just warms my heart so much. Like,
yeah.
Yes, A+ in Spider-Man class. You absolutely nailed it.
Hooray!
And like you said, this movie ends with where you wanted him to be all along, and it kind of resets
When we were in the parking lot as we were walking into the theater, the last thing I said to everyone is, as long as Peter ends this movie broke and miserable, I will leave happy. That's exactly what I wanted. I got absolutely everything that I wanted from this movie. I got. Like,
I feel
I could not see being upset about it.
Man, no,
Right.
And there's the one other spoiler I didn't mention. Let's hold that, I guess, because it's a big plot beat. But
okay.
I agree, and I'm glad you got an A on your Spider-Man class. You had to take it on the web this year.
Yeah, because that's Spider-Man. Spider-Man's the chaotic good character.
It's like,
I like that.
Yeah,
and you could say this whole trilogy, the whole MCU trilogy, is really an origin story. It's a prolonged origin story.
That's a good point. The longest origin story ever done.
Yeah,
they did it.
Like
they
long
did it.
con.
They like. So when Homecoming started, I was like, okay, Iron Man's going to be a mentor. I'll get over it, even though I hate Iron Man. Halfway through Far From Home, I was like, I'm out. I don't like this version of Spider-Man as much because of this Iron Man connection. I don't like it. Uncle Ben not being a factor is finally starting to get to me. There's no consequence. He had money. I hate it. In this movie, it was like they took every note and just
right. Well, it's interesting
and,
because
fixed everything.
Yeah, because Joe, Tony Stark is this Peter Parker's Uncle Ben in a way because
Turns out.
Right? Is his mentor role figure that dies, and Peter Parker has to deal with that. I mean, you could also say that Aunt May was kind of like his Uncle Ben in this movie as well.
Aunt May is his Uncle Ben.
Yeah, but it's just he has to deal with a lot of loss. He loses his male mentor, older role model figure, and then he loses his female older role model figure. So
Loved one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's that's the real moment. But before we get to the heavy, I do want to mention, early we get another thing people were hoping for. I never saw this series, but obviously Netflix Daredevil, we do get Matt Murdock kind of showing up for a very brief scene. What do you think? What do you guys think about that?
It's like not even worth
so soon into the movie.
It happened. I love it. But it's just it's the thousandth pleasurable thing that happened to me at that moment. You know what I mean? It's almost like you almost just forget it. Again, a moment where our audience clapped and went crazy.
Well, that was one of the first reveals, right? Because that's sort of the beginning of the movie. But as soon as I saw, so if you've been watching Hawkeye, again, spoilers for Hawkeye.
Light spoiler for Hawkeye. Yep.
Kingpin shows up a day before this movie comes out on the Hawkeye episode. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, I think
Charlie Cox,
Matt Murdock's going to be in freaking Spider-Man, and I was right.
Yeah, it was basically a confirmation to me as well. Like, this tonight is the Hawkeye finale. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's a shot of Spidey swinging in the snow or something. At this point, like, I feel like anything can happen. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true. Because he does. He's running through the snow at the end of this in Christmas.
Yeah, the other tie-in I noticed from Hawkeye is when Yelena shows up and she mentions like, "Oh, I saw your new Statue of Liberty," right? And then we see the new Statue of Liberty
in this universe. Why are they doing that, Mike? Why are they putting a shield on the Statue of Liberty?
He's a hero. He's an American hero.
But we do see Rogers the musical. Maybe it's just a big hit in Broadway. Like, you know what? We should put it on the statue. Rogers is real big right now. It's a marketing stunt. Yeah.
They do, like when they turn the Magic Castle into like a cupcake or some shit for anniversaries at Disney. I like it. Just same thing in Statue of Liberty.
I do want to mention too that this subtle thing, like before Matt Murdock shows up, there's like a long take when they're trying to they're trying to get away from the crowd, and it's that long take of Peter pulling the blinds down to the TV and the breakup with Aunt May and Happy. Like that scene is like 2 some odd minutes of just this one take, and it's really well done. So even down to that level, they're nailing it. Not just the fan service, but craft. Everything looks great. I mean, it's incredible.
The claustrophobia of like, people grabbing at him while he's trying to swing away with her. It's all really well executed.
I was going to say so many assholes just saying, in this Spider-Man, he doesn't even swing in New York. In the first one, he's in upstate New York. In the second one, he's in Europe or something. Where is he swinging in the New York skyline? And we get this action-packed subway sequence. Yeah, I know.
He listened to the episode.
Yeah, that is. And they just like nail it. They nail absolutely everything that you would want. And the Daredevil appearance, too. It's not like, oh, if you know, you know. Like, he has a hero moment in it as well. Like, it is fully acknowledged that this is Matt Murdock.
He's a really good lawyer.
Again, it's just like a comic book. Like, that is exactly how Daredevil would appear in one scene of a comic. Like, that is how these are done, and, like, it finally feels like it.
He catches the brick, keeps Peter from being served, good lawyer.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to mention, you're talking about, so the inciting incident in this movie, Peter's identity being revealed to the public. It's interesting because in this world, in the MCU, most heroes are like their identities are known. He's like the one anonymous superhero because he's a young kid. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's interesting that it kind of goes into how would your life be affected if that happened to you? Because all the Avengers, people know who Hawkeye is. They recognize him on the street all the time and that kind of thing. So I just think that's an interesting angle.
Yeah.
It's the thing I love most about this movie is every action now has a consequence, which is, the ultimate Spider-Man thing is like, no matter what he does, he's going to lose. Like, that's the Parker luck, right? Up until this movie, like, nothing really ever has a consequence. There's always a safety net. And then in this movie, every single little tiny decision has a consequence on the rest of the movie. Like, we wouldn't have the black and gold suit if someone didn't throw paint on his suit and he couldn't get it clean in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It's like everything this movie is doing not only builds upon the legacy of Spider-Man as a character in media, but it strips away and takes the training wheels off of the MCU Spider-Man that everyone had some people had issues with. Like you said, he had a machine to make a brand new suit even after Tony died. Like he still has resources, and they take away everything, and now we're just back to neighborhood Spider-Man with a sewing machine and some Lycra. You know,
it makes me
shiny.
so happy.
It's incredible.
And when he started, he was very low stakes. Vulture was the first villain that he had to fight, and
with the
Vulture
full
wasn't
kill
even a
mode
totally
and
bad
stuff.
guy. Yeah. And then the next movie, like you said, he's basically has the training wheels on with Tony Stark looking out for him. He has all this technology. Now it's like the training wheels are off. We kind of see him mature from being a young adult or a kid to becoming a full adult. He's graduated high school now. I really like the arc of Peter Parker over these 3 movies, even if you weren't super happy after the second movie. Like, we got to where you wanted to go eventually, and I think the whole journey was worth it.
Absolutely. I mean, like, we know based on current reports that they are doing another trilogy, and like that I really has potential. Like, where we leave this Spider-Man has potential to be my favorite take on characters ever. Like, and the thing I love about this movie too is, the first one, the stakes are pretty low. I think they nailed that about Spider-Man, right? Like Vulture, it's all about money and some weapons getting on the streets. Second one, it's all of Europe's going to be destroyed by this guy who's going to take over. You start to lose me a little bit. This has a big comic book feel to it, has big battles. The stakes are all emotional. The stakes are, at any given point, like Doctor Strange would just put the universe back together, no matter what happens.
Even
you know
if
what I
he
mean?
couldn't,
The stakes are all...
Yeah, the stakes are a maniac on a glider might throw some bombs at a building, and you're like, that's terrible, and somebody should stop that guy.
Well, the stakes
are really like, is Peter
wanting
to make the sacrifice or not? Like, that's it. It all just boils down to
right.
What
and like you
is
said,
Parker
cause and
gonna
effect.
lose?
If Peter hadn't been so much himself and just went along with sending them back, Aunt May would still be alive. All these things would still be, his life would still be mostly normal. But because he had to try to save everybody, he gets shit on. And by the end of the movie, it's like, that's how it goes, right?
It's an interesting setup to have. Basically, here's a ton of villains from Spider-Man, and the conflict is not how do we beat them up, but how do we cure
save
them?
How do we cure them?
That's interesting.
That's the Peter Parker way, and he succeeds in the end. Like, they cure all these villains who apparently were all good guys until they whatever they fell into to turn into a villain.
People are gonna be watching where they fall, man.
Yeah.
We followed.
That'll do it. Electric eel tank. Some of that stuff.
We'll be followed.
But speaking of villains, should we talk about
before we jump to villains, and then I say we jump to Spider-Man. Let's wrap up the Spider-Man talk of just final things you liked about quote unquote this movie as a Spider-Man movie. I'll say, I found it to be very serviceable to its supporting characters. Zendaya, I think, is
incredible in this.
Guess what? A very talented actress.
Sure. Well, the whole Peter, MJ, Ned dynamic is great in this. They have great chemistry together, just as a trio of friends. And the FOS, the Friends of Spider-Man, that's something that kind of was lacking in the other two. Like, you had James Franco being evil or whatever,
best
but
friend.
You've never had a Ned character like this movie does. So I appreciate, the guy in the chair.
And I buy MJ and Peter's relationship in this one more than I have in any of the previous films. Like, there's definitely some kind of that sweet, innocent, high school love going on. Like, it's cute, and they're cute together. They're good actors.
Yeah.
There's chemistry that actually works.
And something weird about Spider-Man too is that they're dating in real life apparently. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone also dated in real life, and then Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst also dated in real life. So whatever happens,
that's the formula.
Yeah, you get these two young hot actors together, and they get together, I guess.
They got all spidered up.
Yeah. I think that works really well. Do we want to? I mean, the big emotional beat Jacob kind of mentioned earlier was, big spoiler, we lose Aunt May in this film, and I was shocked. Green Goblin is the worst of the villains and the last to try to reform, and he hits her with his glider, and it's tragic. She has like walking death syndrome or something. She doesn't realize
Now,
it. It's terrible.
Mike, quick story about that.
I'm in
real
shock.
Quick. Now,
Please.
Jacob stands up at this moment, walks
It's a long
out of our
movie.
theater,
Look,
and go
I
use
had a
the
lot to
bathroom.
drink. It's a long movie.
As you
No,
just
no,
said,
well,
Mike,
yeah,
walking death syndrome didn't seem like she was gonna die, right, Jacob?
Yeah.
It was a big
She
fake
said
out
with
because she
great power
stands up.
comes great responsibility, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, she's fine." And
No,
went to
I was,
the bath.
oh, here's the thing. I
Bathroom
was
time.
walking out. I get to the back of the theater and I hear her say that. I'm like, oh wait, she's about to die, isn't she? Because that's what Spider-Man mentors say right before they die. But it was a great fake out, and it makes sense to kill her off now because she's a limited kind of use character. Like they got everything they could out of her. Like the happy relationship was
Yeah.
funny. The jokes about her being hot, funny.
And it didn't
but
service her
yeah.
very well, but Marissa Tomei tried. Now, Joe, did you find this to be the most horrifying death you've ever seen in a film, just with how she's reacting and how scared she is? And when she's dying, she keeps asking Peter if he's hurt.
Yeah, they mirrored the ultimate Peter Parker death in the Ultimate
Infinity
Comics
War.
by Brian Michael Bendis, who they credited in the credits as well, where
Oh,
he's
wow.
like, "No, it's okay. You're fine. I did it. You're fine." Like it's not about how he's dying. It's about how like, "Oh, but you're gonna be okay." Like
Oh man.
it was perfect. It was perfect way to, and like you said, like I don't think that this trilogy really did her justice at all, but we did get the relationship with the friends, so I'll take that. And leaving Peter to get his GED with absolutely fucking no one knowing who he is. I take the death of Aunt May with a smile, knowing that that's what we're getting. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's a cost.
And the whole scene, not to jump ahead too much, but the scene with the other Spider-Men talking about who they've lost and how they deal with it and everything, that was just such a good
Yeah,
such a good
and I
scene.
want to, because what that scene mentions, I want to say one more thing about Aunt May is that kind of was the moment that pointed their compass, right? And I think that's what we get in this, before she even is dying, when Norman Osborn shows up and she's like, he needs help, and it's like, we save people. Like, that's what we do, Peter.
That's what
we do.
Yeah.
And that is exactly why he makes that choice. So she focuses his compass, and then that leaving this world with that ingrained into him that this is what Spider-Man does. I teared up a couple times in this film, and that was one such
Same.
moment. Yes.
I definitely
but-
teared up
yeah.
a couple times.
Yeah.
I was
Now,
on,
let's-
I was on the edge of tears the entire movie.
Let's talk about that real quick. Now, when we walked out, Joe said he cried a little. Jim said he had tears in his eyes. Me, I grabbed Jacob's arm so hard at one point, I thought I was going to break his arm.
Oh, no.
His eyes did not leave the screen. It was like you weren't feeling what was happening to me because you were so caught up.
Yeah.
I was doing it because I felt like I was being electrocuted. I was so happy. I looked around behind me. Other people were also losing control of their bodies. We will
It was
talk about
truly
that
like a euphoric experience
Like
to
when
be
you get
watching
punched.
it in a crowd.
Doctor Strange
The whole
punched me out of my
crowd is
body.
into it.
It was
We're
so
alternating
crazy.
between cheering and crying.
Yes.
Like, it was
So,
a great
so
experience.
like the coolest movie ever, the movie experience ever that I have like in my head as like that is what the movies are supposed to be is the opening of Scream 2, where like everyone's watching Stab and they're like losing their minds. You know what I mean? Like that is always what I think of it. No Way Home felt like you were there. Like it felt like you were in it. There were so many points where like nothing would be happening on the screen. Not that like, it would be like a quiet talking scene. And I would just like burst out giggling because it was just like unbelievable that this was happening. That this is what we were seeing. I cannot remember the last time something like a movie brought me that much joy. Like I don't know, man.
And the
feel
whole
the
crowd
same
was
way.
just
Really,
so
truly
into it.
cannot.
The audience was into it. It was like we were all kind of feeling the same emotions. And it's like that's not something that you could have got if you just watch it later on DVD or whatever on streaming. This is a movie that like the experience of seeing it opening night with that crowd and just the emotions. It was a lot. you
Under
know?
normal circumstance, I would be annoyed with that type of behavior, as we said in the beginning. But in this particular instance, for this film,
right,
it
if I was
enhanced the
watching,
experience. Yeah.
if I was watching The Green Knight in theaters and people started like cheering
Hooting and
stuff,
hollering.
I'd be like,
Sir Colin, yeah.
Jack off on that rag.
Yeah.
Losing it.
For real.
But for this is the perfect kind of experience for, and this is something that, Martin Scorsese has made comments similar to this that people have said like, oh, he doesn't understand like Marvel movies, whatever. But what he's saying is like this is a different kind of movie than like a lot of other movies.
It is a theme park ride.
It's not a bad thing, but it's just different.
I never cried on a theme park ride though.
Totally.
You can like both those things, and you can support one of the greatest actors in the world, Willem Dafoe, at the same time, who's got this and Nightmare Alley both in theaters.
Yo.
Right. Like, there's room for everything, man.
Let's
so right, Joe.
Yeah, and that's a perfect transition to the villain side here. Let's talk some of these villains here before we get to the men that are Spider. Willem Dafoe, chiefly, you said this name first. Joe, what's your take on this? And when I see him, it's like he's back and better than ever.
It's insane to me how every character in this movie is also better than they were in the original movie.
Yes, even the good people. Yes, agreed.
Yeah, like a Green Goblin is unfucking real how good that performance is. When he broke the mask, which happens, like you see him once in the classic 2001 suit, and then the next scene you see him in, he breaks the mask. And I was kind of like, man, I'm a little bummed. I was hoping we would see that again. Absolutely not. Like, getting rid of that mask was the smartest decision they could have made, because his face is just...
Yeah, he doesn't need a mask, because his face is the scariest mask of all, because he's just Willem Dafoe.
Well, that's what everyone said. It's like, oh, they should have showed his face more in the original. Like Joe was saying, they're fixing everything. They're like, we'll give it to him, and then we're going to break it, and then he can do his Gollum scenes, and it's going to be really great.
And you know what? We'll throw some purple in there, so the suit
with
too,
the hood,
and we'll give him a little bag.
But
like everything
Mike,
that you wanted,
Joe. Those are the big moments. That's the comedy. That's the action. That's the drama. The Jekyll and Hyde what he's doing. How about in the background, after having conversation with May, just stuffing his pockets full of donuts, Willem Dafoe. It's like losing his mind, Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. And the scene where after May dies, Peter wants to kill him. And he's just punching him in the face repeatedly. It's almost like a Joker type of moment, because he's just laughing. He's got the widest grin you've ever seen. He's just cackling, and it's just like, man, this guy.
That hallway fight or building fight is so fucking good.
Oh, the condo.
The hand-to-hand combat in this is so
good.
It is out of
the wrestling moves. There's like a lot of wrestling moves in this movie.
There's a lot of luchador moves, which I really appreciate.
That's a Spider-Man thing.
They ripped an exact move from the PlayStation 4 game where you power jump up and then web the ground and shoot down with pressure. Like, he does that exact move from the game. Everything about all of the fight scenes are incredible, especially with William Dafoe.
Have we seen Spider-Man in this universe ever fight a villain with super strength? I mean, the whole point is that, Willem Dafoe, high on Goblin serum, is saying, you have all the power in the world, but none of the strength to take it and use it. Kill me. And they're pushing each other further and further.
It's a real rise of Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah. Another Disney property.
Well, I think the Sam Raimi movies always had the best villains, with Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin, Alfred Molina, Doc Ock.
Thomas Hayden Church,
best, right?
Some
of these guys are lesser. Like I say, Thomas Hayden Church and Lizard from Amazing Spider-Man kind of got the. They didn't have as much to do in this movie. The main two that I really like were Doc Ock and Green Goblin, with Electro being the most improved from his original role.
Most improved. So let's stick with Raimi then, because Goblin shows up at the end of the Dr. Octopus fight, and I really like that on the bridge, using the underside of the bridge, and he was really, really intimidating in that fight. I like that.
Mike, the youth face technology working for you on Molina?
Didn't take me out of it at all. So I give it a
The
pass.
big difference here is that the arms, obviously in Spider-Man 2, were all practical. Here they're all CGI, but it allows. I don't know if it's better, but it allows them to do more
dynamic.
In post, he can kind of fly around and do whatever, and it's a lot easier to shoot that than you kind of sacrifice something.
It's different too. Yeah. This is not a Doc Ock story. Like, Doc Ock is one pawn to play a certain role in Peter's story here, where you would argue Spider-Man 2 is also a Doc Ock story. It's a story about a scientist who, gets lost in his creation and isn't focused on love anymore or whatever. But this is he's just there to serve a purpose. The purpose he serves is great, and there's enough payoff for him, but I don't know.
Not much.
But I think him and Green Goblin have the most kind of redemption of their characters with him. I mean, they fixed the chip that turned him evil, basically, which makes him good again. And he kind of saves the day at the end, where he pretends to sort of be bad.
voices.
Yeah. Whereas Green Goblin starts good in the beginning of this movie and then turns bad.
It was a trick.
Do you think so?
Passenger.
So here's the ultimate, right? They are pulled from a universe, other universes, where their fate was to die fighting Spider-Man, even though that's not true for all of them. But there's a scene where they're literally like, "Oh, I know you. You died fighting Spider-Man. Oh, last thing I remember is doing this and then Spider-Man." If you look at the moment they bring up for Doc Ock, he's like, "I had one of my tentacles around his throat, and I was about to have my machine work." The way it would have worked is if he left that moment and went back to that moment, he's still gonna die. That is like his awakening moment where he's like, "Oh, I have to sacrifice myself now." So it almost like works. Because I watched Spider-Man 2 right when I got home from No Way Home, and it almost works where if that's the moment he got taken out of and then comes back to, it is like he just awakens for no reason other than like, "Oh, Peter talked me into it," which, like in the original movie, you get they had a heartfelt conversation and it worked, but maybe there is this other like supernatural element to it,
That's why he grabs it and goes down with the ship, It could have worked. That's interesting. The other ones
Green Goblin. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, because like pointing like an inconsistency. It's like, Green Goblin would just probably die, but like the Lizard was just cured. Like he doesn't die,
right.
Electro, I don't remember if Electro.
Yeah, they say some of them die in the movie. Yeah. But Green Goblin, didn't he kill himself by accident using his glider, basically?
Spider-Man jumped out of the way and flew into him,
And Mike, we're not on him yet, but our amazing boy gives a speech at one point about how he stops pulling his punches at one point. Is the implication that he goes up against the Lizard a second time and beats him to death?
And that's there's another encounter now. Yeah,
or
maybe he breaks
other
out.
Villains.
Yeah.
But he has the saddest
not around.
No, we're not there yet. Don't talk about Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire.
Yes, we will get to that. But Electro, right? Electro.
Yes.
Terrible in the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Again, fixing
Look was
problems.
terrible. Origin was ridiculous, but in this movie, Colin, he was like your favorite part of the whole movie because every time he chimed in, he was hitting those one-liners. He was kind of the comedic
It's impossible not to laugh at this guy. From the moment where he turns after giving a speech and says, "Y'all just gonna pretend I'm not standing here buck-ass naked?" And then later when they're getting cured, and he's gonna turn. And he turns to Spider-Man and says, "I got a really important question I gotta ask you. Are those your Legos?" It's just clearly the suggestion from John Watts, the director of this film, was, "Jamie, we have a script. If you don't want to say a word of it, that's completely fine." And God, it works, man.
And his look is so much better. We see the classic costume look to him, the yellow lightning bolt.
A million times better.
He seems
you could argue too that,
Go ahead, Joe.
He even in the movie is like, I like myself a lot better here. So that is his whole motivation, is like, I just want to stay here because I like who I am here. And I totally agree. I like who you are here too, man.
Another person who also didn't know who Spider-Man was. Like, he doesn't know
even at
Peter
the end,
Parker's identity.
Like, I thought you were going to be black.
There's a bit of an issue with that plot contrivancy, but whatever.
We also had Tom Hardy Venom, who didn't even have a Spider-Man in his world. So how would he know who Spider-Man is? Why is he?
I guess they explain there's multiverse.
My fix for this is he's sitting there. It's the same scene exactly, you guys. Mm-hmm. He's writing on the pad. You're telling me this happened. You're telling me this happened. You're telling me this happened. Instead of cutting to the bartender, it's Topher Grace next to him getting a drink. It's the other Venom. Why wouldn't you just do that?
That would have been great.
That would have been really great, actually.
Maybe they couldn't get Topher. He was busy doing other stuff.
Doing what, Jake?
He's too busy.
I don't know.
Man. That's good. So Lizard, I think, short beat here, though. Jamie Foxx mostly.
Yeah, Lizard and Sandman.
I didn't even know you could talk.
Lizard and Sandman, both in the movie.
It's almost like, I don't know if Thomas Hayden Church and Rhys Ifans were even like invited to have a larger role, or they were just like, you're gonna shoot like 1 or 2 days with a green screen.
Thomas Hayden Church didn't shoot at all. He did not shoot anything.
When they turn him normal, that's CG?
That is ripped directly from Spider-Man 3, dog, and then ADR
Oh, that's
lines. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
That's why he's
shot was
mostly in
ripped
like a
directly.
sandy guy for most.
That's why
of the
he's
Yeah,
in his
that's
sand form the entire
weird.
time. It's only ADR that he did.
Now,
He only
Joe,
did
is
ADR
your
in a voice
favorite
performance.
line in this entire movie when he comes in and says, "Peter Parker, it's me," whatever his real name is.
Yeah, it's me.
Do you
Flint
remember me?
Marco? Do you
Yeah.
remember
Flint
me?
Marco.
Yeah. What's
Peter
going
Parker,
on?
it's me, Flint Marker. Flint Marco, do you remember me? That's so funny line.
He's like, no, not really, dog. Can you help me out? And he gets like for
Okay.
a second, and then it's like,
The
oh
flattest
no, did I
delivery
get
you've ever heard.
tricked?
Sure.
Oh man.
Yeah, he does really feel like
Yeah,
that could
yeah.
have been like, Firestar or Iceman. Just be like, I'm Peter Parker's friend, and you're Peter Parker.
That is very comic
Right.
booky, though. Hey, you might not have read that comic book. I need to introduce
Exactly.
myself.
You need to reintroduce it. That is,
Right,
I'm telling you, man,
right.
this movie
Should
I
have come
feel
up
like
in the corner. See Spider-Man 3.
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it started with the shows on Disney Plus with WandaVision, where I was like, I think they're gonna really just stop making movies and start making comic books as movies. It's like Endgame and Infinity War, you could argue like those are so far adapted from the original source material. It really is like, they're just making a movie that is sort of that story. These are original stories that are comic books.
Yeah.
It just is a comic book on screen with
Right.
really great cosplay.
Well,
and
like with the
performances.
Hawkeye, I knew that was going to be based on the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run, and I thought, oh, this Jeremy Renner doesn't really, this Jeremy Renner Hawkeye doesn't really fit the tone of that. How are they going to do that? But what they've done is kind of put elements from that, but not, adapt it directly. But there's elements there, and it works better, right?
Yeah. And also I think like just the universe they've created, it really Colin, do you remember when we used to say, yeah, Andrew Garfield's a good Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's never going to be in the MCU. We're never going to get to see Spider-Man with these other characters. And I believed that. And then like we got Spider-Man and it was like, well, X-Men will never happen. Flash forward a couple years and you have Tobey Maguire in an MCU movie. Like, who would have fucking thunk? It is outrageous that this is how this is played out.
And now I believe is a perfect time to talk about the Spider-Men. Shall we dive in on the Spider-Man?
Hold on,
at
Mike.
all?
Let me make a portal.
Okay,
Let's
please.
find the Spider-Man coming up next. Let's find the Spider-Man
Parker.
coming up next. We're back. We're talking Spider-Man 3 with 3 Spider-Men. Ooh, interesting. And this is the worst kept secret in Hollywood.
Honestly, not for me because I did not.
Yeah,
read
were
any
you
spoilers
spoiled? Yeah,
online.
Jacob.
Interesting
100%
question.
no. 100% no because I guessed that it was going to happen, but going into it, I did not know for sure.
Agreed.
I was kind of hoping that it would happen, but I wasn't going to be let down if it didn't happen because I was like, well, maybe it won't happen. Obviously, I knew the villains were going to be in it, but no, I did not know.
Joe,
sure.
did you know for sure one way or another?
I didn't know for sure. I mean, like, obviously, there were so many rumors that, like, at the time, now that it's all happened and it all, like, spoiler alert, every rumor was fucking real.
Yeah.
Everything you ever wanted, you got.
That's what's crazy about this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's the thing that blows my mind. There was a point where, like, I truly thought no. Like, I was like, team no. It's not going to happen. There's, and we don't even need it. That's kind of outrageous. Like, that's kind of, at this point, wouldn't it be fucking funny if they weren't in it? Like, that's like how my brain
Yes.
started to work.
Yeah.
And
we were, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'll just say, Jacob had pointed out to us.
Yeah,
in
we were
that
talking about the trailer.
Where
I was
there's
like,
a moment it seemed like people were erased, and we all thought interesting. Now, Joe presented what I thought was the best argument to that, which was you don't see Doc Ock and Goblin in that fight. They turn sides and team up with Spider-Man. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That sounds pretty good. I definitely think that's what it could be. Going into
I
it,
kind of suspected
wasn't
that,
sure.
I kind of suspected from that trailer shot and things I had read online that, like, oh, maybe Garfield and Maguire were painted out of that scene. But, it was still very inconclusive, so I didn't know for sure. And I liked it that I wasn't spoiled on things going into it. Even looking at Twitter, I didn't try to hide myself from it. I just was able to not see any spoilers, which is amazing on the internet, really.
I mean, like, the good thing is that they would trend every day for the last, like, 6 months anyway. So, like, their names were both trending, but, like, they had been trending for weeks and weeks leading up to this. You know what I mean? I'll tell you, my attitude changed entirely after the last episode of Hawkeye. When Kingpin came out, I was like, holy shit, Kingpin's here. Okay, well, now I think Matt Murdock's definitely going to be in this movie. I remember texting you guys as a joke that, like, people were saying Kingpin was going to show up, and I was like, they're fucking insane. You think they're just going to, like, oh, Kingpin's here. Yeah, oh, Daredevil's here. It's all happening. Yeah, it is. It's all happening. Like, that's, like, the craziest thing.
Well, we should have expected it because MCU...
Dreams do come true.
They have a very consistent track record of doing these kind of things and making, you know, good movies. So
yeah. So I didn't see any spoilers either. I mean, I saw the Andrew Garfield like photo, the you know, where he's sitting on the green screen. Somehow I came across that.
Yeah, those leaks that were out forever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, it looks like they are going to be in it, but I wasn't sure to what extent and how effectively they would be used. But I pretty much avoided any of the other leaks. And when all's said and done, as Jacob said, they have a good track record of doing it. And not only are they doing it with their own films, now they're bringing in a franchise like Joe said, the MCU started in 2001 now, apparently.
Well, even if you saw pictures or something on the internet, those could be fake. We don't, you know, anything can be fake on the internet.
And they look fake. Exactly. Everything looked fake because
everything looked fake.
It was too outrageous to believe it was
There's no way
real.
we're getting
like,
what we
it all
want.
Looked like bad Photoshop.
Have you seen
and
Star
what
Wars?
we didn't realize is that this movie is written by a computer which had read every fan theory online and said, let's just do it. Let's do everything.
Why not? Why not just let them have it?
I was okay.
I think when we saw Evan Peters show up on WandaVision, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I thought, you know, at that point, I even thought they were going to go all the way and be like, oh, the X-Men are in this universe now. They didn't do that. But it was more
that's an interesting question. Is this the last hot hand you can be dealt? Because there's all this stuff now about, like, well, the Flash is going to have Michael Keaton's Batman. And it's like, okay. Or, ooh, what if Doctor Strange had Hugh Jackman's Wolverine? Okay. After this, I believe that all those things can happen, but I will never be impacted in the way I can again, where for a minute I was the age I was in 2001 when my best friend Tobey Maguire came out and told me I was a good little boy again.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. The DCEU is constantly like 2 steps behind Marvel, right? All the time.
I feel bad for him at this point because they even tried to get ahead of it. They were like, Michael Keaton's in this movie, Ben Affleck's in this movie. They're all here. Look, we're not hiding it all. And
nobody gives a shit.
Anyway,
it's like, oh yeah.
Do you think he'll do the dance?
Yeah.
Insane.
So Ned has a sling ring that they lift off Doctor Strange during the fight.
Ned's magic.
Yeah, Ned can do magic apparently.
Sorry.
He has it in his family. But anyway, he's looking for Peter, you know, and they're desperately saying, find Peter Parker. And when they do, it's not Peter. The first thing, we get a much taller, seems to be maybe more skateboard aptitude.
Well, yes. Spider-Man. Now, I did the impression for these two the second we got out to the parking lot out by my car. There's a hobo figure standing by the trash cans. Like a dirty hobo who's just like rifling through the garbage. Peter! Listeners, he does like a goofy little, he's pointing at himself. He walks up like the Three Stooges. Mike, people could see the glare of the eyes. A woman started screaming behind us. Did you know in that moment?
Oh, man, yeah. And my theater was going crazy when they realized that it's Andrew's Amazing Spider-Man. Like, they were hooting and hollering as if there was a bow guy on screen and Jacob was in the theater. It was something.
It's like full bow guy madness. Yeah, man, that reveal, it was just like, once he got
wasn't expecting it.
Knew the other one was coming. You know what I mean? Like once one was there, it was like, oh my god, we're getting a moment with him. And it's such a long moment, and it's so funny. And there's like the immediate acknowledgement of like, oh, here's how I'm a different actor. Here's how my performance is different. Oh, I'm saying all these science words. I'm obviously older. I'm obviously like a little more charismatic. It's just so hard to talk about because the smile just gets so wide.
Joe, that energy all goes out the door. And this is what I love about the performance of Andrew Garfield is he is playing it like the camp counselor who just graduated to that role, who's like, oh, there's young people here. Okay, hey everybody, so here's what we're doing. And the second he sees the actual camp owner come in, he's like, oh, thank God, I'm not in charge anymore. So what do we do?
Yeah. Jacob, what was your experience? We were talking about the Andrew Garfield reveal, and my theater went crazy as soon as you see him coming out, and he's the first one we get.
That was the moment, right? Because it starts.
Quickly.
Yeah,
it's a long movie, and the plot is actually picking up at this point. And I was forgetting that was supposed to happen. So when it happened, I was like, oh God,
You give up by that point, Mike. Because like you said, we're an hour and a half into a 2 hour and 45-minute movie, which is an issue with this film. But you're
Still
like,
surprised
it's
us
got to almost be over. Nope. Bam.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's the perfect amount for them to be in the movie, because if they were in it earlier, it wouldn't have the same impact. Like saving them for like the third act actually, I think, made the movie better.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's still so much we get with them too. Like that's what blows my mind.
They meet and talk to everyone.
But they actually appear at Peter's lowest point in the movie, because this is right after Aunt May dies. So he's kind of in mourning. His friends are trying to cheer him up, and they haven't heard from him, so they're trying to get a hold of him. And then that shot, I love that shot of like the reveal of Andrew Garfield, because it's so far out, right? So you don't exactly know what's going on at first. And as he starts to walk towards you, like, oh, is that the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit? And then he comes through, amazing. And then the Tobey Maguire one, also great. But
but he's coming in like a
little showdown. The little showdown.
Little showdown.
Where it's like, okay, like a little acknowledgement.
You got Ned's grandma giving the comedy relief angle.
Get the cobweb.
The fact that we got them, like I thought when we got them, maybe a little cameo, 2 seconds. We get emotional payoffs for both of them. We get resolutions to their character arcs in their original franchises.
From other movies.
Well, I think Andrew Garfield, obviously, I think he was the strongest performance of the two. He was just he just seemed so happy to be there, so happy to be returning that character. And then the moment, obviously, where he saves MJ, who's falling in the same way that Gwen Stacy was falling, that was such a great, cathartic moment. I started crying at that moment. That was a big,
that's another one for me too. When
add that to the list, man.
He's crying so hard. He's so impacted by what he's finally been able to do that she says, after he says, "Are you okay?" She says, "Are you okay?"
Yeah. And the way that's set up is, Tom Holland is jumping after her. He gets kind of taken out of it by Green Goblin or something.
Goblin!
And then I'm sitting there in the theater, and I just see Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I'm just pointing at him in the theater, like, oh, he's gonna jump.
Do it. He's
gonna
do it.
Yeah.
And instead of webbing, he catches her because he learned his lesson. And what did he say after she asked if he was okay, Joe?
He said, "Are you okay?" And then she said, "Yeah." And then she said, "Are you okay?" And then
he says,
crying. He says, "Yes."
Crying.
Yeah.
Amazing moment.
He gets a resolution to his arc. And there is a criticism, I guess. There is an exact scene that's the same as the Into the Spider-Verse, where you have all of the Spider people be like, "Hey, here's the moment that turned me into Spider-Man. Now that you're at the moment that turned you into Spider-Man."
Mm-hmm.
But this scene actually does it a little better because there's less people on the screen to share that moment, and every single person has a different answer. You get Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, and then Aunt May. So it kind of is great. You don't have it was my Uncle Ben. It was my Uncle Benjamin. You don't have one of those weird moments, So it made everyone feel like a little
Spider-Verse also had the element of comedy where it's one of them is a noir Spider-Man, one of them is an anime Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And the emotion's still there.
Pig.
But
yeah. And this it is a
Which
lot
I love.
stronger.
Don't get me wrong. I want all of the Spider people, but it just being so condensed to have that scene, which is fucking outrageous. It's 3 dudes from different universes who all have radioactive spider powers, delivering these emotional reactions to the hardest moments in their lives. It's amazing how good everyone who plays Spider-Man is at acting.
Can I?
Andrew Garfield especially was just crushing it. I think he's probably the best actor. I mean, Tom Holland could be a good actor as he goes on. He's still young, but Andrew Garfield has been nominated for an Oscar.
Jacob's
he's a
so
great
excited
actor.
for the Uncharted movie.
Yeah,
you
right.
keep saying Oscar nominated.
I want to piggyback off Joe's point about these kind of dudes talking about the emotional shit in their lives, because you don't see that a lot. A little bit more with Disney you do now, and it's important. And we were talking about how Lord of the Rings is a lot of that. And to get that now in Spider-Man is so strong. And like literally, even though it's like a fan service moment, like when Toby's like, no, you're amazing, Andrew Garfield. You're amazing. And it's like, I know it's dumb, but like it hits, it hits. And
well, and one of them says at some point, like, I've always wanted brothers or whatever, because they're essentially like meeting your twin brother from like an alternate dimension, because they're all Peter Parkers, right?
Let me ask you about this, Jacob. If you met your alternate twin brothers from another dimension, and all of them said their girlfriend's name were MJ, and your girlfriend's name was Gwen, would you then return to your universe and be like, I gotta find somebody named MJ? Yeah.
Well, here's what they could do, right? Amazing
you guys
Spider-Man
remember
3, greenlight it.
Well, do you remember cut scenes for Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Shailene
She was
Woodley.
cast. Do you remember Shailene Woodley? Mrs. Aaron Rodgers played MJ in that universe.
Well, all right, greenlight.
He's out
Amazing
there.
Spider-Man 3.
Go get your
Shailene Woodley.
anti-vaxxer, Spider-Man.
Well, I think Jacob posed this idea with Venom, that send Andrew Garfield back, let him be in it. And if that's the only reason Eddie Brock was in the bar was to learn about other superheroes, then he could be like, where's that Spider-Man? And then they find Andrew Garfield. That's all we need.
And maybe,
Amazing Spider-Man 3, you're right. Yeah.
Well, maybe they were in the same universe all along, and
they just never
Tom Hardy just didn't. Just never heard of
It's interesting to think about, right? So you have to wonder how much of this is all planned out and how much of it is falling into pieces or place. Look at Morbius, right? Morbius, the trailer, references Venom.
I won't. You can't make me.
Has Michael Keaton as the Vulture.
Right.
Has a bus that says, "Where is Spider-Man?" as if the Spider-Man of this universe is missing, and has a murderer written over a Spider-Man graffiti in the street. So if Andrew Garfield stopped pulling his punches, this universe is this Andrew Garfield's universe? Is Morbius and therefore Venom the universe for Andrew Garfield?
That's what I would hope.
The Michael Keaton Vulture implies that he's in the MCU.
That's the only thing.
To Joe's point, he could be. Do you think he was in an issue 1 Vulture suit? Yeah, he's like in the classic outfit, Joe.
Yeah,
we haven't seen him. I mean, like, variants can look the same. They don't have to look entirely different.
But they can.
I don't want to talk about any of that Loki stuff, by the way.
Before we get too into that, I have like one dumb thing I want to mention. So when they're all doing science together, which is another
a great
all
scene.
Three Peters are just doing science together.
Yes.
Andrew Garfield's like, oh yeah, I can cure a lizard. I've done it before. It's no big deal. Yeah. What are you guys staring at me for? It's no big deal. Do you guys get that joke for no big deal? NBD, which is what the kids say a lot. Okay, so you guys remember the Sony leaks?
Oh, the Amy Pascal thing.
Yeah,
right?
the Amy Pascal Sony leaks. They, one of the like emails was like, we need to make Spider-Man more relatable to kids. He needs to listen to EDM music, and he needs to say things like, no big deal, NBD. All the kids are saying it.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Joe, you bring that up. I said to Jacob in the car when we left, I think same thing. I think the exact same executive who said that stuff is the reason we got in this movie the pairing with a new device line when it paired with Doc Ock's arms, because kids know that from Bluetooth.
Devices,
and some execs, it's like,
They're
kids
always
love pairing devices. Like, just put that in there.
The whole thing with
that was
the
just a
nanobots
fun
coming
nod
onto
of,
his
like,
thing didn't make any sense.
Hated it.
Yeah. You gotta have something to move the plot forward. But
one moment I just wanted to mention that it's just another minor moment, but it's so funny when Ned is talking about like, oh, is there a best friend in your universe? He's like, oh yeah, I had to kill my best friend after he tried to
murder
turn
me.
evil and tried to kill me. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Just a hilarious
Which is great too, because Ned Leeds is the Hobgoblin in the comics. Ned Leeds is brainwashed by the Hobgoblin to take up the mantle and become a supervillain. So
wow,
we haven't seen
in some universe
Oscorp and Norman Osborn in the MCU yet.
And specifically, Jacob, he says, "I went home here. There is no Oscorp. There's no Harry. I don't have a son." So there, do you think there's not a
Norman Osborn
in the MCU?
I think there can be. I think we need to see what happens in the next couple movies because to be honest, like we are at a point now where I think anything is possible. And I do think, we're getting another season of Loki. We're getting Multiverse of Madness, which the trailer for Multiverse of Madness was the second post-cred scene here. Obviously, they're going to be connected. Who knows what's going to happen in that? Point. That movie could break it and then it reforms. If you look at like Secret Wars, which is something that's been thrown around a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like people love the original Secret Wars. The second Secret Wars, which is less beloved, was an event in 2015 that was ultimately designed to get Miles Morales and some other characters that were stuck in other universes into their main continuity. So what they did is they did the second Secret Wars where everything amalgamated into Battle World and then was eventually reset into a new universe. I saying that kind of stuff used to sound insane. Now I don't think that's so crazy. I think maybe fucking Willem Dafoe will just be Norman Osborn in this universe from now on. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, and we've been training audiences to understand a multiverse and like it's not so nerdy anymore. Like, oh, okay, so I hear you there. And who knows what could happen? One question I have, and we haven't really talked about Toby. I think we all love Andrew. How could you not? So let's talk about Toby, but this ties into that. When they send everybody back at the end and they say you're all going to forget who Peter Parker is, do the Spider-Men remember their interaction with each other? Because I would hope that they do, so. Or my heart will break.
So, yeah.
Or is this some sort of like, you go to heaven, and so...
But like you are Spider-Man, so you're allowed to retain that memory?
Like, he is Spider-Man, so I would beg to believe you can't forget about other Peter Parkers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I would hope that Andrew
I don't want to
Garfield
think about it too much. Because then you could argue that, like, if no one remembers, do they even remember that they undid it, like, that all the villains were cured, or they just go back and then revert to who they were before?
Norman, what are you doing here?
Yeah. So I guess we don't dive into it, but Toby, you got your suit, or you're gonna do this like a cool youth pastor? Great line from Andrew, but yes. Shows up looking like a youth pastor.
It shows up, which was an amazing line. Now, I agree with you guys. The weaker performance versus Andrew Garfield, but the writing does not highlight his abilities. They gave Toby the meme lines. When we joked earlier and said it's memes colliding, he does the back stuff. He says literally there are things called Raimi memes. I put it in the same category as prequel memes.
Yeah.
Kids today, this is the oldest I'm ever going to sound in my life, don't want to like things. They want to make things as ironic as possible. And that's great. It's cool that you guys like that stuff and think it's funny for that. Just enjoy it. Is what I would say. I don't understand why you have to make a joke out of every still image of those movies. Just enjoy them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like the prequels because they're so memeable, I guess. But,
yes, but
Tobey Maguire,
memeable?
He's the elder statesman Spider-Man, right? Andrew Garfield is just super happy to be there, super like charismatic, upbeat. Tobey Maguire, he's a little older, a little wiser, and he's kind of the
he's still so nice and polite and like goofy. He's such a goober, right? Compared to Andrew, right? And he captures that still.
And I think he played it exactly like he played Peter Parker in the movies. Like there's no disconnect between, the performance. Like he went back to that character, which I thought was great.
Now, interesting points about Topher himself. I'm not going to bring it up here. I don't want to open us up to libel. Jacob told me some interesting things that maybe he's up to. Look it up is all I'll say, Norm.
I explained the reason that Tobey Maguire has been kind of blacklisted from Hollywood the last couple of years. It has to do with him being a celebrity poker player, and he's in these high-stakes poker games with other celebrities. Yes. Yeah, Molly's Game, directed by Aaron Sorkin.
Very weird.
Is about that, yeah. So he's kind of been blacklisted, sort of, by Hollywood for a while now.
Well, I'm glad you let him come back for this.
Mike, is pay scale for all these people. Who do you? Because it is celebrity. I made the comment to Jacob. I think Topher, Jesus Christ! Now I've got Topher Grace on the brain. Tobey Maguire got paid as much or maybe more than Tom Holland. What do you think, Mike?
Ooh, interesting.
You can't have the movie without him. You could not do it if it was just the Amazing
It
Spider-Man.
would be weird if Andrew Garfield showed up and he didn't show up.
Yeah.
I feel like
Second one
Tom
of them
Holland's
showed
probably
up.
got to be the highest paid actor in this movie, right? But he probably got paid more than Andrew Garfield.
You think
He
he
probably got a
paid more
rookie
than
deal.
Zendaya?
He probably signed a
Zendaya
5-picture
could be
deal.
the most, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
she's the highest paid actor. in the
Dang,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
She's.
great.
I mean, yeah, they're probably similar, but I think Tom Holland is probably. I mean, the star of the movie.
I
is
think
probably
he
gonna be
got like a
paid
5-picture deal, and
Yeah, and whatever
it was
he
in a
is, he
flat.
is.
It's like a rookie contract.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
right, Mike.
And the
He
other
signed
one's like,
in
I don't know,
early.
man.
Mhm.
You got to think like Andrew Garfield adored being Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire, like these guys were down to be Spider-Man as long as they were allowed to be Spider-Man. So they might have just been happy to be coming back.
Joe, my other comment to
Yeah.
Jacob was, I think Andrew Garfield flat got paid the least amount for this movie. I think even
he
Jimmy
probably carried
Fallon
the
paid
least.
more than him.
I'm
Just
sure he was
because
like,
he's the
I'll bring my own
nicest
suit.
guy.
This is great. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
exactly. It's
you
like
for
my
letting me
mom
come
still
back.
has it. I'll swing by her house. I'll put
Yeah.
it on.
But at the same time, I think Andrew Garfield is a bigger name at
Yes.
this point in current time than Tobey Maguire.
That's
who,
true.
Like I said,
Oh,
hasn't been working very
100%.
much. Yeah.
But
I
it's
think
all
we'll see them
nostalgia.
again.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we will see
Really?
both of them again.
I-
I do.
yeah.
Because here's the thing. Why would you not, in the final moment where you have, the main villain of this movie is Green Goblin. It's a test of character. And Tom Holland, young Spider-Man or main Spider-Man, is about to fail that test. And, Tobey Maguire swings in and has his Uncle Ben moment and then gets stabbed. If you weren't going to bring them back, you could have killed Toby there.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Well, I think.
I think it
I mean, they
would've-
might want to
it's
just leave it
played-
open. You know.
It's played
would've made
like
so
they were
many
gonna
people
kill
sad.
Toby, and then they were like, "No, this is too good. We gotta leave a door open."
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
almost like like they could bring them back now if they want to, but they didn't want
I
to close
think
that
they
door
will.
permanently.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Sony, Sony, they want to have a MCU and they're going to do all those villain movies, with Morbius and Venom and like Crave. They're going to do all this crap. All they need to do to correct is exactly what Jacob said. Andrew Garfield's hotter than ever right now.
Yes.
Just
I
put
know,
him
I'm a
in and you
genius.
have your
Make
own
me a
Spider-Man.
Sony
And
executive.
I think
Yeah,
they
you
will.
I think the
have your
post-cred
own.
scene. I think the post-cred scene for Morbius is going to include one of these Spider-Men.
Yeah.
I think there's no way it doesn't. There's no way it
Interesting.
doesn't. If you want that movie to be anything, that is the stakes you have to do.
Well, I think
Here's the problem with this movie that we're not talking about that I think is a problem. No movie is going to be able to top it. Like Colin said, this card you can only play it once.
Right.
Patrick
Yeah.
Stewart, Hugh Jackman, they show up. It's like cool.
We've done this.
It won't hit the same.
Well, this is the thing that I've-
the last trump card you can play.
And this is something with the MCU where after I saw Endgame, I was like, well, how are they ever going to top that? Am I going to start caring less about the MCU movies going forward? And then they throw out this banger. And now it's like, well, I'm not going to underestimate them that they could do something else really good, I'm going
This
to,
banger's Spider-Man, man.
But even
Like-
the MCU, even their lowest movies are not terrible. They're just it's the consistency of MCU that makes it so special because the bad ones are just kind of average or whatever. They don't have the terrible superhero movies that so many other movies, especially in the early 2000s, kind of became.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Eternals? Has anyone watched that yet?
No,
I haven't.
I have not.
Oh,
I've seen
it's,
Only
it's
one?
going to be hitting Disney Plus next month. So
Did you see it, Joe?
Don't watch it. Doesn't
no,
matter.
I have not.
So only one of us has seen this, but we all love Spider-Man. Yeah, Eternals is
sucks.
getting a bad rap.
But Shang-Chi
Yeah,
came out this year.
no
Shang-Chi
worries.
was pretty good.
Shang-Chi
so it's
was
like
good.
Yeah, I do.
even if
like
there's
Shang-Chi.
one that's
Hawkeye's
they haven't had a
I
big
think the
bomb
best
yet.
show.
Hawkeye's
Yeah.
very strong
Hawkeye's
too.
incredible. But
Yeah,
look,
they
we're
made
not talking
Hawkeye
about the
cool.
Red
They
Man.
could do anything.
Yeah.
Now,
this
we also
movie-
watched Black Widow.
Oh, yeah, that
just
too.
movies. Let's get to our final thoughts on this one in particular too. But because we're talking about the future of the MCU, and because he was a character in this, the post-cred scene that you guys were just saying, the Multiverse of Madness. What did you think of that footage? And Jacob, are you excited for that movie? Do you even like Doctor Strange? I don't even know your opinion on Doctor Strange.
I thought it was okay. The first movie was okay. He's not my favorite character in the MCU by a long shot, but I don't remember too much about what happened in the second post credits scene trailer thing.
Because we were all high on Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah, but the
So
crazy thing is
it
it's
is
going to be
a-
directed by Sam Raimi, who we
Yes.
obviously love. So it's like Sam Raimi's everywhere in the MCU now.
I mean, the thing it boils down to is you're going to get a follow-up on Wanda. So if you like WandaVision, you're going to get some Scarlet Witch. And it's directed by Sam Raimi, which means, anything could happen. Like
Toby could be in that one.
But like, here's the thing: I can't just judge my movies by whether they're going to have Spider-Man in them or not. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Like,
And I think you're
that's
right
the
that
problem with this movie. It creates a paradox where it's like, I don't want the next one to be bigger than this.
right. This
Like,
is
the
the
next
highest
one-
high that it can be, because if they do bring back Toby or Andrew again, it's not going to have the same impact that it had this time.
I don't want him to ever cross
Yeah.
the universes again. I know we're doing the multiverse of madness, but
Really?
I don't want like Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire to ever share the screen together again. I think
do.
I think
Give
I'm
me
Wow.
a Secret Wars.
maybe if we go there, but for me, like I'm satisfied with this, and if it brings
this is the
Andrew
peak.
back in a separate universe, then I'm even happier, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's for me.
Yeah.
Bring
Amazing
Andrew
Spider-Man
and
3 with
Tobey
Tom Hardy,
back.
Venom. Do it.
Yeah, but for
Yeah.
multiverse, the biggest thing for me is just that Sam Raimi started off the Spider Mania, superhero mania, and now he's back at it again. And so I will see it for that reason alone, because he kicked this
Do you
whole
like
thing off.
Do you like Benedict Cumberbatch, Mike?
I like him when he's crawling along the ground bleeding the dragon. You know?
You like a
Same here, buddy.
smoke.
I like.
Well, this is the crazy thing. So
I think it's
he's
fine.
in-
I think
Ooh.
Doctor Strange is fine. It's
Yeah, and he's in a movie this year, The Power of the Dog, directed by Jane Campion, getting a lot of
Probably gonna
Oscar
win
buzz.
Best
He might
Actor.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might win the Oscar this year. So
Yeah.
good for him,
This
I guess.
goofball.
He plays
Yeah.
like a gay cowboy, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like a very
Yeah, and then he
closeted
says
gay
Scooby Doo
cowboy.
this shit. All right, let's
yeah.
swing
Scooby-Doo
in.
shit.
Let's close all the portals. Let's cancel the spell.
Send
I'm
these
gonna kill
listeners
my
back
aunt.
home. Oh no!
Yeah,
Don't do
Let's
that.
get him out of here. We gotta go. We're talking our final thoughts here. Spider-Man: No Way Home coming up next. We're back. We're wilding out. We're talking Spider-Man: No Way Home here on Normies Like Us, giving our final thoughts on the third installment of an 8-film franchise.
9 if you
in
count the
making.
Spider-Verse.
Yes. And, I want final thoughts on this as well. But we were just saying topping. And I would like to point out, Joe, you're saying the trilogy after this could be amazing. But you're also saying, how do you top it? We got that perfect Spider-Man you want. We got that perfect costume. But what does happen after this? He fights like Hydro Man or the Jackal in this next movie? What could make you excited as a Spider fan?
I honestly, here's the problem with it. What would make me excited is to go the complete opposite direction now.
Yes.
Like, what I've always wanted is where we finally are, right? And that's Suit at the end. We just got a glimpse, but easily could be my new favorite Spider-Man suit. It's paying homage to his two Spider buddies, but also being the most faithful, accurate, fucking Spider-Man costume I've ever seen. But it's a guy alone in New York. I really hope that we stick to those stakes. Kingpin is on the table. Scorpion is on the table. There are places we can go that aren't to the Spider-Verse. I really hope it takes it back to basics, that it is a street level hero doing street level stuff, which is tough because box office wise, that's not what they're gonna do. That's not what makes sense.
Right.
This was a big multiverse craziness. I would be super thrilled if it was just a movie in New York and Daredevil and Kingpin were in it, and it was just about cleaning up the streets and getting community
here's the
college
thing.
Taking his
passes.
GED, yeah.
The
Real problems for
the
real
Spider-Man
spiders.
amnesia of the world that nobody knows who Peter Parker is. I don't think that's going to last because it can't. The Peter MJ story has to be resolved. They can't leave it where it is now. So I think the next movie will have something to do with him trying to get her back, right?
Winner.
He had a
Yeah,
chance.
because
Yeah,
it's
we'll see.
He's in his lowest point now.
This
So it's
is he's at Spider-Man 2 levels right now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we should say, that's how Joe wanted it to end. Jake and I were very in the camp of, I hate this. I hate this ending. I want my good boy Peter to be happy. It made me very sad.
Well, I hate
to
it
see
in
him
a-
alone and scared.
I hate it in an emotional way, but I do think it's a good it's a good place to bring the story to. But I don't think this is the
Where it's
end of
supposed
his
to be,
story.
guys.
This is not the end of his story. If it's
this
anything,
is
it's the beginning. Yes.
It is, and it feels so much
Only
like
the beginning.
Give me,
Shut up, Zendaya.
police
My main
scanners
concern-
and dollar burritos and slices. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
he's a poor
And I'm
boy.
excited to see that. My concern is that, you said they want to do another trilogy. Tom Holland's made comments recently. Oh, I don't know. I might be done playing Spider-Man. If I'm still playing Spider-Man at 30, something's going wrong. He's 25 now. So he's saying in 5 years, he won't be Spider-Man. I don't know if they're going to get another trilogy, or maybe it's just one movie or 2 movies or whatever. But he also said, like, I'd like to see a more diverse Spider-Man. I'd like to see a female Spider person, Gwen Stacy, maybe, or Miles Morales.
Yeah,
so,
multiverse it. Just pull him in here, and then our Spider-Man can do anonymous stuff.
Look, here's my thing. Make a Spider-Man movie every 6 months. I'll be there. Like, I don't care.
Well,
Put
and
Toby
the
in
box
one,
office
put
of this
Andrew
movie,
in one.
Second biggest opening weekend of all time now, maybe 240 million opening weekend.
Wow.
I mean, that's
Pandemic.
insane. In a
Hollywood
pandemic,
is back, baby, during the pandemic.
yeah,
That's a big
insane
deal.
number. So
Omicron,
of course
kill
they're going
me.
to make more.
And it hasn't
Spider-Man
opened in
movies.
China at all yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's a big
Yeah.
market. And we don't even know if it's going to get released over there. And it's still doing gangbusters and probably going to make $1 billion if Omicron doesn't take theaters off the table.
But I think the reason for that is obviously, people love Spider-Man. Spider-Man movies always do well. But also, like Colin was saying, this was the reward for living through, 24 months of pandemic. So a lot of people probably felt that way. And they're like, we got to see this movie. Huge opening. My other concern, and this has nothing to do with the movie itself, but, I was reading about, so Nightmare Alley, the new Guillermo del Toro movie came out. Terrible opening. And there's kind of a conspiracy that Disney is like sabotaging all the Fox movies that they bought 20th Century Fox. They released Nightmare Alley on purpose against Spider-Man because all the ones that were greenlit before they bought it, they're like trying to sabotage it or something.
How can you say that? We all love the New Mutants.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, I'm just concerned that, MCU is so good. Nobody can compete with them at any level. And it's like, there's going to be nothing left at some point. It's just all going to be MCU movies. Who knows?
That's why we have Netflix and limited run series, Midnight Mass.
Right.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
It is sad to see, the
theaters?
smaller movies kind of get pushed out.
Marvel houses? That's what we
Marvel
call them. We
houses.
just go to the Marvel houses. We sit down, we watch our Marvel movies.
That's right.
And I was even reading
what?
online, people, someone had a ticket for Nightmare Alley, and the theater called them and asked them if they, wanted to refund their ticket because they wanted to cancel that screening of Nightmare Alley to show more Spider-Man. And it's like,
hey, you're the only guy going to Nightmare.
As much as I like this movie, I'm worried about the future, the future of cinema. But that sounds, that's all a whole other thing.
Yeah, and it's not Spider-Man's fault if that does.
It's not Spider-Man's fault.
No, as Paul Thomas Anderson
less
says,
worried about
he
it.
saved it. He's bringing people back. It's
Theaters.
not his fault.
Yeah, like it's a tough catch-22, man, because I think we're gonna enter a new age, right? Where these are like the vaudeville shows. These are the big theater shows.
Nickelodeon.
You're also gonna bring back boutiques. Like, man, there's gonna be a place for everything. I think we need to get to the other side of the pandemic.
The smaller movies are getting pushed out, and I think the main problem is that Disney just owns everything now. I don't know if that's good for the future of Hollywood or movies in general, but they make consistently good products. So
yes.
Gotta say
and Jacob,
that.
I'll call Paul Thomas Anderson again and say I feel no sympathy for the AMCs of the world. It's the mega house theaters that built these 20-story, movie houses and endless parking lots and stuff that they go, nobody's coming to our movies. We can't even fill these things up. I don't give a shit. Knock them down. Make them small movie theaters again.
Yeah, true. Local
Bring
theaters.
back the boutiques. I don't care.
Yeah, but what I do care about
I
is
do want to see
Spider-Man.
Nightmare Alley. Yeah.
And that's to get us back on track, Spider-Man. I'll give my final thoughts on the No Way Home. First of all, one thing, setup's kind of dumb. Like, the Doctor Strange would not say, you didn't get into college, so I'm going to forcibly change everybody's memories. Like, that's an invasion of privacy of the highest order. And he's just like, okay, you're having a bad day. Let's cast a spell on everybody.
Right.
Someone should have been more responsible. But I don't care because what happens. And the ending of this, once Joe introduced me to the concept of the Parker luck, I've just had it in my head. It's like, that is Spider-Man, and I get it now, and I love the ending of this. And because of that and seeing our boy Andrew Garfield, I must amend, he is my favorite Spider-Man now. After this movie, Andrew Garfield's my favorite. I need him back. I cried for that man. I feel bad. Like, he has the worst Parker luck, but if he's a murderer, that's another we'll have to see.
You know what? I agree with you, and I think he was his best in this movie.
I think that it's good that people can now look back and appreciate his performances in those bad movies because he is good. And he deserved a bit more recognition for those. And I think he's going to get it after this, and that's good. He was definitely the highlight in my theater. Everyone loved everything with Andrew. The women were hooting and hollering. The guys were hooting and hollering. We were all hooting and hollering.
When he's like, I love you guys. And they just like,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
man.
Much. You're an Avenger?
Yeah,
What's that?
That sounds great. What is that?
Are you in a band?
Yes. And then I guess just the theme is like I like Peter having to have two alternate versions of himself work him through this emotional moment, and I think that works really well. And he finally is, like I said, there's a 3-movie origin story. I think it works well. I just wish when they were doing science, the doorbell would have rang and said, "Who's that?" And then Toby would have come through and said, "Pizza time."
Guys.
That's the only meme I didn't get.
Things we were missing. He didn't do the dance.
And no pizza time.
He didn't the moment. If he had done that,
Spider-Man 3 references in general.
Well, I don't know about that. He says at one point. So Andrew Garfield says, "Well, Topher says to him, Topher, Jesus Christ, Toby says to him,
we're gonna do a find and replace.
Do you have anyone? Do you have anyone? No, there was somebody. Not really. How about you?" He says it's complicated. Kinda. And then he says, "We figured it out." So is he still with Kirsten Dunst, do we think?
I think so.
I
think that's the implication. But even when
he's the older married Spider-Man.
Yeah. I mean, that's my hope.
I'd love to see a ring. That would have been great. If he would have just been like, "Okay, let me put this in my pocket."
Ask for anything else. You know what I mean? Like with how much we got, it feels like
you're right.
Silly
it's
to
selfish.
be like, but they could have mentioned that he had a daughter and it was Spiderling and her powers were it just.
Oh sure.
I'm slightly worried they've created a monster, but I can't stop smiling over it.
It's can I say real quick on that note, Joe? You're so right. It's kind of our release the Snyder cut in an interesting way. Of like, it's not something we were denied. But the same way that it has now risen a fervor in a group of people who literally, Mike, you're the 20th person I've heard say like, "Amazing Spider-Man 3 or else we'll kill you." It's like, no, stop.
Do it. Now, give it to me now. I've earned it. This is mine.
I hope not.
I hope not. Kind of crazy.
I still think they should do my idea. Bring Venom into the Amazing Spider-Man world. For my final thoughts, I wanted to talk about the team-up scene just a little bit because it's such a simple thing, but the way they do it, where they're not working together that well at first, and then they have a little meeting. Yeah, they haven't, and it makes so much sense for the Tom Holland Spider-Man to be kind of the leader in that situation because he's worked in a group with the Avengers, and that's the thing that the other two have never had. They've always been solo. So that whole scene, like they each bring something different to the role. And they just meshed so well together in that final fight scene. It's incredible. And when you see them all jump off the roof and start swinging, it's just like the greatest thing in the world.
Triple swing. Peter 3? Well, I'm Peter 3, of course, Peter 3. Andrew Garfield.
Peter 3. The energy he has, Mike.
Amazing.
This movie, like, I don't know, man.
I need to watch it another 100 times.
I want to see it again. I need to see it again.
I do,
for sure.
Which I fully intend on seeing it again. And that was like before it was even over. Before I left, I was thinking like, when Spider-Verse came out, I saw it 2 or 3 times in theaters. This movie, assuming theaters can stay open, I'm gonna go at least 1 or 2 more times to see this movie in theaters. And then when Spider-Verse hit like streaming and was available to like watch all the time, I would watch that movie once a month. I will watch this movie once a month, and then like eventually it'll go down to like once a year, but. I cannot wait for it. I really feel like, I'm not the only one, but I feel like a lot of people like maybe I wouldn't have made it through this year if it wasn't for this fucking movie. Like to have that dopamine hit right when it did. You know what I mean? Like, it does feel like a shared hallucination or reward for like getting through the year.
Yeah, and as much as I'm enjoying talking about this amazing movie, I would rather be just watching it right now. You know what I wish I was just watching it again.
I wish I was watching it right
I
now.
watched Spider-Man 2
Absolutely.
right when we got home. I started playing the Spider-Man game again.
Aw.
Like, it's back to Spider-Mania for me, man.
Hell yeah. hell
Incredible.
You gotta get the Miles one. There is a Regal
5.
right by me that has 3D 4DX showing for $18.50. I'm really thinking about that. I couldn't
Okay.
even imagine what added water bursts and dumb shit they do for the villains and stuff.
Seats are
you know,
gonna
for the
move.
4DX.
Yeah, I really
It's
want
gonna
to see it again in theaters. I meant to see Dune again in theaters. Never got the chance. Wanted to see that in IMAX.
Oh, yeah,
this
in
might be
IMAX
great
too.
in IMAX.
They keep saying
Yeah,
this is a good one for IMAX because
Oh,
it's
wow.
wider and there's just more.
sure.
Look, you know, I don't know if you guys have had the privilege too to talk to people who haven't seen it and just sort of
You can't even say anything about it because it's like
the
so hard.
juicing
There's so
that
much
you have to
spoilage.
do. And even coming into this, you know, when we got out of it, I was very much not trying to be a wet blanket, but trying to be like, let's keep our expectations in check about what we just
Like
saw.
Zendaya
Where I'm
says.
like Mike,
Yeah.
exactly. I saw it and I'm like, let's just relax. You saw that movie and it was great. It's not the best movie ever made. And then I
But isn't it?
the way that I go through
more
it,
you
where I'll
fucking think
text you
about it.
guys, and I'll even put out the thing where I'm like, I don't know if Electro should have come through. There's kind of some plot holes. Joe will throw something out that fixes it, and I'll be like, you know what? Who gives a shit? Like immediately, my mind will just be like, it doesn't matter. Jacob, you said it so perfectly up top of it's fan service. Who gives a shit? I'm the fan they're servicing.
Yeah, I mean it's 100% Spider. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, you're gonna like this movie. If I met a Spider-Man fan that didn't like this movie, I'd be like, "What do
so
you like about
confused.
Spider-Man?"
It's a
I'd be
love
very
letter
confused.
to the,
Yeah.
the legacy of the film
Yes.
versions
Yes.
of that character.
Yes.
I've never felt more serviced leaving a theater.
Yes.
Like, for real, man. It is.
You ever been to
Like,
Tijuana?
I can't stop fucking smiling. Like,
Right.
You got
Yeah.
it.
It's-
Everything
My
I
question
wanted.
is, okay, so like I said, it's hard to judge it objectively as a movie because we're fans. If my mom went and saw this movie, she would probably not appreciate it on the same level that we are because she hasn't, kept up with the whole spider history of movies
No.
of the last
she
20
wasn't
years.
the little boy who grew up watching Spider-Man movies. No,
Well,
probably
I
not.
think because I was doing the same experiment. My brother's home for the holidays right now. He specifically has said, "I'm going to take mom to go see Spider-Man," and in my mind, Jacob, I keep playing over. She's not going to know Andrew Garfield. I just imagine that whole period skipped her life. But I do think seeing Toby will spark something in her. Even though I have no memory of watching that movie with my mom, but she has to be cosmically aware, don't you think, of what the
Right.
impact of what he
Everyone's
was?
heard the good word.
I don't
of
think my mom-
Spider-Man too.
My mom would
Master.
probably be very confused at a lot of moments and be like, "Who's that?
Really?
Why is he important?" But if I just
Interesting.
gave her the primer of like, okay, this movie is going to have villains from 2 other franchises come in, and then it's going to have the heroes of the 2 other franchises come in. So just keep that in mind. I think she would kind of get the picture pretty
Okay,
quickly.
interesting.
I have talked to a couple friends. I'm like, oh, you see the new Spider-Man? Like, no. I'm like, well, do you like Spider-Man? Have you seen the Tobey Maguire ones, the Andrew Garfield ones? Like, nope, never watched them. But I'm like, we don't live on the same planet. Like, I don't think I
Never
can
mind.
continue to be your
I don't
friend
know,
right
like-
now.
And it's hard to recommend without spoiling anything. So you're like,
Yes.
oh, you
Yeah,
have
so
to see
you're
this
trying
movie.
to
I can't
gauge,
tell you
like,
why
How
you
much
have
do
to
you
see
know about it?
Yeah.
I had a buddy from elementary school text me this weekend who I
Wow.
have not talked to in I don't know, like 10 to 15 years probably, who was like, hey Joe, did you see the new Spider-Man movie? I
Wow.
was like, I sure did. Yeah, like it's crazy. I'll bleed into my final thoughts real quick. Obviously, like we've talked about how great this movie is, how much it meant to me as a Spider-Man fan, how much it meant to everybody as a movie experience. But we keep saying like, it's hard to look at it like subjectively if it's even a good movie. I think this is a very good movie, and I want to use one of my favorite points as an example. That final scene that people hate, that really defines Peter Parker. He goes in with his little script. I think he's giving a great performance. Ned's very natural in the background. This kind of feels like an intimate movie or moment from like a smaller movie. They're having that scene. They're having their meet cute all over again. She brushes back her hair and he sees the Band-Aid. And it all comes back to him visually. Oh yeah, I'm the problem. I have
Right.
to sacrifice the thing that I want.
Thanks about her getting grabbed by the fans in the first scene, Joe.
Exactly. So they put the whole thing back in context in that one little like movement of her hand relates the entire point of the movie and the sacrifice back in that tiny little beat.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I thought that was a perfect
Spider-Man
scene. People
movie.
didn't like that.
People don't like that he's, some people don't like that he's struggling, but
they don't like that he's Peter
Spider-Man
Parker now.
yeah, some people don't like that like Spider-Man has a hard time.
Yeah.
I'll point out where I think the writing is really servicing everything that's going on here. As Jacob again perfectly said at the start of this, of what is the responsibility of Spider-Man? It is to fix these people. It's to do the right thing. We all know that. And when Tom Holland in these early scenes to 4 different characters keeps saying, I'm just going to ditch these people. They're not my problem. They're not from my universe. It's not my problem. May is shooting him looks to start before she even gets to the point where she's giving the speech to say, how dare you? You know you're better than that.
Yeah.
Other characters know Peter is not acting right. Everyone in this movie knows who Peter as a character is. That's hard for a movie to pull off, to have a lead that is so strong and so defined.
Yeah. That's true. Even like MJ 100%. And Ned at times are like, I don't know, Peter. I don't know about
this.
That's not
plan. Right. That's not right. You. Ask us. Let us help you. You're so right.
Yeah, talk to me before you do something next time, and little community. It's good.
And
stuff.
even when he was so angry at Norman Osborn, he was literally ready to kill him, and then he gets get talked down to by Tobey Maguire. So it's perfect. It's
and then
it's
Aunt
his
May,
older, wiser self.
Right. Self. And then Aunt May, when she's dying, she's only saying, "Oh yeah, are you all right, Peter? You're gonna be okay, Peter." Like she's only thinking about the other while she's dying. It's like
she literally started like a homeless, food company. So
like I guess food company,
the longest origin trilogy ever, and I love it.
Turns out,
and I love the third one the most. I say A++++ on the GED for Spider-Man: No Way Home. Go watch it.
They did it.
It's not replacing Lord of the Rings for the best trilogy for you now, Mike?
No. Just this one movie is very good. And the first one is pretty good.
Yeah. I guess for my final thought, it's hard to quantify this movie. Like I said, for me, I can't judge it in an unbiased manner. I don't know if it's the best Spider-Man movie. I think I agree with what Joe said about it being like the best comic book movie interpretation. Like it's the best movie interpretation of a comic book that's ever been made. And I just really liked it, but it's hard to even give it a rank or a score or anything like that. I just say, like, if you're a fan of Spider-Man, it's a must-see for sure, right?
If you like Spider-Man, smiling and once-in-a-lifetime experiences, this one's for you.
Yeah.
It is. You can't go back to, like, before you saw this movie. You know what I mean? Like, that joy, that's a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Right.
Yeah. It was special. Colin, any final thoughts here?
No, I think it's time that we get sent home to our own universes. Now, obviously, I'm not the Colin that was originally on Normies Like Us. I am like a really crazy, sick version of that Colin who will turn into a dinosaur here in a minute. But before you leave us, listeners, keep the conversation going. Keep talking to us. Keep letting us know what you thought about Spider-Man. Oh my God, I was 5 years old when Andrew Garfield came out. What do you guys mean Toby was your Spider? We want to know that. Hit us up at normies_like_us on our socials. Rate, review, subscribe. Helps us out. Go, go, go.
Yeah, you do that. Check out the videos on YouTube, all that, and appreciate you. Thanks, Spider fans. Yeah. All right.
Hey, and I'm literally just going to say thank you to that movie. Again, I just imagine Joe Biden calling up the director of that film and saying, you have to make the nicest movie ever made that just makes people feel good about their lives. So thank you, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yes. All right. Let's sign out.
This is your host, Colin Octopus. I can't remember who I was.
I'm still Spider Mike. Just the saddest one.
Just the saddest one. Joe 3.
Nice.
And this is Spider Jacob from a different dimension.
All right. Well, get home safe, everybody. Catch you next time.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you.